He was humanity's strongest, captain of the Divine Legion, a hero who stood above all, until betrayal took everything: his comrades, his family, his faith. Dying in despair, Bai Yi was given one final mercy: time itself. Reborn 20 years in the past before the awakening began, before the world fell apart. Now, he fights not for glory, but for vengeance and redemption. When the strongest awakens again, who will stand in his way? Let's find out. The story begins with the protagonist thinking that, due to the existence of magic, this world has given birth to many demonic caves and demons. For the same reason, those with special abilities, the awakened, have also awakened. He and his team met the SSS-class Demon King, Belphegor, of the 5 elements. They are the strongest team of awakened, the Divine Core. His name is Bai Yi, and he has been leading this team for 10 years. Their mission is to clear demonic caves under the orders of a higher authority, the one called God. He rushed to the attack, loudly called out to his team, and said that the operation was beginning. He thought this was the 100th high-level demonic cave they had encountered. Ling Yue, an L-class assassin with lightning elemental affinity, agreed and called him captain. He thought this mission was designated as the L-class purification operation. Han Xiaoling, an L-class cloud mage, flew up and used the glacial world skill. He thought that the L-class represented the highest level of difficulty. However, once they're done, they'll be on a short vacation. Support Lishan, a star conductor L-class, used the skill Starfall, gravitational attraction. The system announced that gravitational attraction had been strengthened, power increased by 200%, speed by 100%, and gravity increased by 100-fold. MC quickly ran up to the monster and dealt a very powerful blow with his sword. The system announced that he was the Divine Core Commander-in-Chief, a warrior, and an L-class nuclear saint. He thought that the SSS-class Demon King, Belphegor, had been eliminated. Xiaoling stretched and said that they'd finished too quickly again, which wasn't fun at all. Ling Yu said with a smile that she'd find him a couple of demon caves later to have some fun. Lucian said that it was a first-class mission that required their entire unit. Don't you think it was too easy? Bai Yi began to wipe his sword and said that intelligence claimed it was a special demon king with 5 elements and a hidden skill. She hugged him and asked with a grin, "They're on vacation after this. He treats everyone, right? Or they could go somewhere alone." He pushed her away, turned away, and said that they were all together, as usual, in the holy capital. She said with a smile that it was another failed ambush. Xiaoling looked at him with a surprised expression and said that he didn't understand anything about women. He noticed something and asked, "That guy didn't follow them?" Lucian was a little surprised by this and asked, "He said he'd do the cleanup, but he didn't even fight Belphegor, right?" She said with a slight smile that he was always the slowest. He knew that. Xiaoling said with a smile that he was usually a master at slacking off. At that moment, a guy came to them, began concentrating energy in his hand, and said that the purification operation was beginning. He fired this energy and killed Xiaoling with one attack. This greatly surprised the rest of the team, and they loudly called out to their fallen comrade. The assassin said that this was the real mission given to him by God. Bai Yi tried to turn around, but his body was engulfed in magic, and he couldn't move. He said that all his breakfasts for the last month had been laced with paralyzing powder. He used a divine skill, a flower, and forbidden vines. He created vines with which he immobilized them and said that to eliminate the strongest of them, he needed absolute preparation. He looked at him with a displeased expression and asked what was happening to him. Had he gone crazy? Ling Yu asked what he was doing. The system announced that the effect temporarily deprived one of consciousness and removed all defenses. The masked assassin said that this was an order from God. L-class purification operation means their purification. He released several more vines, which pierced her and Lishan in front of his eyes. He became very angry about this and asked loudly, "Why kill them? The Divine Core never crossed the line. Which god and by what right do they do this to them?" The assassin called him an old friend and said that he was still very naive. He ran up to him very quickly, pierced him with his hand and asked, "When a god kills him, does he need a reason?" The protagonist, with a surprised expression, asked, "Weren't they comrades? 10 years together? Weren't they almost family?" He removed his hand and asked, he still doesn't understand why he was chosen. From their first meeting, the god moved these pieces. They were always just pawns. To gain their trust, playing this role for so long, he almost felt sick. The assassin pointed his finger at him and released the energy that killed him. He started to leave and said that on May 22nd, 2025, all participants were confirmed dead. The L-class cleansing operation was completed. It was finally time to rest. At that moment, MC found himself in an unknown space and heard a voice that said that he was offering to make a deal. He started looking around and asked, "Where is he?" In front of him stood a man who looked at him with a smile, called him handsome, and greeted him. He was surprised when he realized that it was Belphegor and asked, "Is he still alive?" He said with a calm expression that the SSS-class Demon King cannot die so easily. This is the domain of his soul, the entire kingdom of Nai. This is his life force. They should stop this empty talk and get down to business. He feels that his hatred matches his. He offers him a deal. His hidden skill is called life regression. He can send him to the distant past, granting a chance to change everything. He is interested in this, right? Bai Yi began to remember his friends, the time he spent with them, and how they were killed. He raised his head with a serious expression and said that he would kill him and these so-called gods sitting on their thrones. Belphegor said with a smile that this was wonderful. As expected, his answer was satisfactory. He should allow him to give him another gift. He could consider it a welcome bonus. He asked with a serious expression, however, why was he making a deal with him, and what was the price? The monster chuckled and did not answer this question. Immediately after that, he woke up in the office and saw the teacher, who with a serious expression called him and said that he should wake up immediately. He was in 2015, protector of the Sacred Nation, State J, Awakened Academy, Middle School Department. He was surprised by what happened and said that he really returned. He looked at his hands and asked, "Is this the moment before his awakening?" The teacher said with a displeased expression that sleeping through regular classes was one thing, but falling asleep before the awakening ceremony was too much. He should get up. He called her teacher Huang and thought that he had returned to his school days. He started to leave and thought that he had really been reborn. Could this really be Belphegor's ability? This was incredible. He hadn't seen his classmates for almost 20 years. He stood at the blackboard at the back of the class, and the teacher said that they would continue the lesson. They should all listen carefully. In this world, there are 5 elemental powers: electric, plant, cloud, nuclear, and stellar. Each person can possess only one of them. For example, she has the rarest cloud element. Depending on how the element connects with the body, they divide it into 3 categories: combat, support, and special. The combination of the 5 elements with different roles creates a variety of professions. Their school's strongest guild consists of a star mage, a cloud warrior, a nuclear bard, and a lightning slayer. She knows they've already surpassed ordinary people, awakening the potential of millions. They've been praised since childhood in their finest hour. However, today is their most important day. There are nearly 100 known awakened professions. They are divided from lowest to highest: dust, coal, abyss, and heavenly. Each of them only gets one chance to awaken. This afternoon, their profession will be determined. It will determine their future status in this world. After class, the protagonist went outside and thought he felt a sense of nostalgia. It was here that he first awakened. His attention was caught by a guy in glasses who fell to the floor next to him. 3 guys stood next to him, one of whom, with a wide smile, said that useless trash relying on artificial awakening dared to block his path. He thinks he's cool just because he's about to awaken. For an awakened rare red rank like him, there'll always be insects. The system announced that it was Hong Qiansheng, an E-class assassin, star element, origin unknown. He watched from the sidelines and thought that this school bully was always picking fights even in his past life. It seemed like his testosterone was running wild and he was always looking for trouble. Wang came to them, called him over, and told him he had to stop. This was school, not a robbery incident. Qiansheng turned to her with a smile and said that he was the one who bumped into them. He waved the money he took from the student and asked if it wasn't fair to treat his friends to tea. He approached her and quietly asked if she wanted to play the heroine. If she weren't so pretty, he would have gotten her fired long ago. She approached the student and asked if he was okay. He left with his friends, laughed, and said that this time he would give in to the teacher. His attention was drawn to the MC, who stood in their way. He pushed him aside and said that he should get out of the way. They would come back later to laugh at these weaklings. The student asked the teacher for forgiveness and said that it was his fault. Wang said that he shouldn't blame himself. He looked at her and thought that she was always strict on the outside, but kind on the inside. She helped him a lot after awakening. Several people came to them. One of them called her and said that it was her class's turn to go to the awakening hall. She went there with the students and told them to remember that they must remain completely calm during awakening to avoid injury. He walked with them and thought that there were 2 ways to awaken in this world. One is natural awakening, like Qiansheng's. It usually happens to people with a strong body and natural gift. It occurs automatically during moments of strong emotions. The other way is through the Hall of Awakening, the embodiment of the wisdom of countless scholars. Inside the chamber, emotions and adrenaline are strongly stimulated, provoking a possible awakening. However, since everyone awakens randomly only once, the student happily left the hall and said that he had been given a blue rank profession. Wang happily said that he should go and rest. He was probably tired. Bai Yi thought that this is why awakening is considered the only reset in life. The teacher called his name and said that he was next. He must pull himself together. No more laziness like in class. Is everything clear? He passed by and said with a calm expression that he knew about it. He thought that in his past life, he awakened as an E-class nuclear warrior. It was a dusty profession. Because of this, he was constantly bullied. Only at S-class did he awaken the rarest type. He should have a nuclear element. So what will he become this time? He saw a notification that said that an awakening system error had occurred. 5 elements were detected. He was confused because of this. He felt a heat inside and wondered, what is going on? He saw a notification that said that the endless awakening system was activated. Since his body contains 5 types of elements, he can choose any class from these elements as his initial one. Subsequently, when a certain element accumulates enough energy, he can gain a new random class for this element or improve his original class. He asked with a surprised expression, what does element accumulation mean? That is, he can not only choose the awakened element and class, but also gain new classes in the future. He can collect classes of the dust, coal, abyss, and heavenly ranks, all qualities. Even this class is of special quality? The system announced that it was, but he could only choose the initial class. All subsequent classes would be given out randomly. The protagonist remembered what happened before reincarnation and thought about what it meant. This is what it led him to. He said that this is the ability to endlessly awaken. The system announced that after choosing the initial class, all elemental scales would be reset. He must choose wisely. The other students stood outside and asked why he was taking so long. They noticed him and said that he had finally come out. Huang greeted him with a joyful look and asked what class he had awakened. He apologized with a calm expression and said that he would have to disappoint them. He awakened the nuclear warrior class, the worst green quality. She sighed with a slightly upset look and said that she understood. To encourage him, she patted him on the shoulder and said that everything was fine. Even among the green quality, outstanding people appeared. He must not give up. This world will not abandon him. He said with a calm expression that she did not need to console him. She said that she knew he must feel terrible. She took him away and told him that he should rest. Awakening must have been very exhausting for him. His attention was drawn to Qiansheng, who laughed out loud and said that this was ridiculous. If he worked hard, the world would not let him down. He remembered this teacher was quite capable. How can she speak such useless, toxic positivity? She knows it herself. In reality, things are completely different. He approached them and said that the quality of the dust rank means he is at the very bottom. This is how this world is. The gods choose people. They only choose the strong, and the weak are needed for humiliation. MC was angry because he talked about gods, went further and asked why he was here again. He asked with a smile. He knows about this, right? Those with dust quality can now only sit in the back rows. Why is that? This is their society. No strength, no connections, no future. Always in the background, forgotten by justice. The strong get the best resources and become stronger and stronger. From the moment the dust class awakens, their fate is already sealed. They can only be low-level laborers among the awakened. What other change can come through hard work? Dust class and genius, does he himself believe in it? It's like birth. His fate is already sealed. Their awakened academy is a reflection of this. He approached the teacher and asked with a smile, does she mean to say that everything is wrong? She has a flickering rank. She can only work at the school for a small salary. He waved his teacup and said that people with a dusty rank should go home immediately and not waste the state's resources. Bai Yi grabbed his teacup, pressed it, and the contents splashed in his face. Qiansheng became angry and loudly asked, what did he do? With a calm expression, he shook the tea off his hand and said that he was tired of his talk. He began to laugh and with a wide smile called him a freak. He channeled energy into his fist, swung it, and insulted him again. Huang tried to stop him, but she was too late. He continued his attack with a wide smile, and the system notified that Star Spike Strike was in progress. The basic attack of the Star Slayer increases attack power. With a calm expression, he created a sword from energy and used the block skill. His opponent was very surprised when, in addition to this, he additionally used the parry skill and delivered a swift strike. Qiansheng was caught in the attack, suffered greatly, and was thrown back several meters. He fell to the ground and began coughing up blood after the attack. He looked at it and wondered what just happened. The other students were also surprised by what happened and asked, what happened? How did he do it and what was wrong? The protagonist, with a calm expression, put the sword on his shoulder and said that he himself chose this class. The system announced that a nuclear warrior with a basic lightsaber attack and evasion increased by 20 points. He looked at him with a smile and said that he was just used to it. Qiansheng got to his feet, laughed loudly, and said that he was just lucky to dodge once. He is a rare abyss rank, not at all like trash like him. Huang looked at what was happening with a surprised expression and thought that what just happened couldn't have been an accident. He used a first-class movement skill available only to a warrior. A parry to block damage at the moment of receiving the strongest blow and, with an impossible split-second reaction, reflect physical damage back at the enemy. If the block is executed in time, 100% of the damage can be nullified. When reactivated within this split second, there is a chance to reflect all physical damage back at the enemy. This was a technique her teacher couldn't master even after 10 years of rigorous training. Someone like him, on his first day of awakening, with no combat experience. She didn't have time to finish because Qiansheng drew his sword and loudly asked, is he ready to die? The system announced that a star assassin with a bayonet had his attack and speed increased by 30 points. He loudly said that he would make him crawl before him in front of everyone. MC looked at him with a calm expression and thought that of course he had his reasons for choosing this seemingly weak class. Judging a person's future and life by their birth is a grave mistake, one they realize only many years later. The system notified that blocking would use a weapon to stop damage, blocking over 50% of damage depending on the time. If the block is performed in time, 100% of the damage can be cancelled out. When reactivated within 0.09 seconds, there's a chance to reflect all physical damage back at the opponent. The worried students looked at this and asked, are they going to fight? Using awakened powers for duels is strictly prohibited in the school. So many people are watching this. Qiansheng's father is a high-ranking official and his uncle is the dean, but the Bai family is poor and without connections. If he takes the bait and fights here, he will be expelled. Teacher, what should they do? Huang stood between them and said that they had all just awakened. Perhaps they would become comrades in future battles. She was about to say something else, but he asked loudly, was she mocking him? This piece of trash just provoked him in front of everyone, and she was asking him to let it go? It was useless, even if he knelt down and begged for forgiveness. He would make him understand the difference between the chosen one and the loser. She looked at him and thought that he was right. The reason for the huge difference in qualities was the difference in stat bonuses. The system reported that Bai Yi was a first-level E-class E-class character with a nuclear warrior profession. Stat bonus 100%, strength 53, speed 41, endurance 61, luck 26, elemental power 8, and spirit 11. He also has block and swiftness skills. She read this and thought that the attribute bonus for a dust-ranked quality was 100%, meaning it remained unchanged. A radiance-ranked quality of the same profession received a 150% bonus, while abyss-ranked quality received a 200% bonus. The system reported that Qiansheng was a first-level E-class character with a star assassin profession. Stat bonus 200%, strength 124 points, speed 150 points, endurance 44 points, luck 42 points, elemental power and spirit 20 points. He also had backstab and ferocity skills. The student he bullied thought that an abyss-ranked character's stats were twice those of a dust-ranked character upon awakening. The gap in strength will never be bridged. It's all over, be it strength or lineage. He's completely crushed by his opponent. Why did he even bother attacking someone so much stronger? People like that are certainly disgusting, but to survive in such a society, one must learn to avoid them. When avoidance is impossible, one must learn to swallow humiliation. Only those who know how to bend and yield can save themselves. A direct confrontation is the most foolish choice. Even more humiliation awaits him. Qiansheng, looking angry, ran to attack with his dagger, while Hanu, looking worried, called out to the protagonist and told him to be careful. He continued running. The student wondered if he was going to block again. However, the parry skill consumes a huge amount of stamina. His attack is too strong and his speed is incredibly high. It's over. He won't be able to block this blow. He swung his dagger and loudly said that he would see how he dodged it. He looked at him with a smirk and wondered why he needed to dodge. The system notified that swiftness temporarily increases speed by more than 50%, the increase depending on reaction and skill. Instant flash. Upon reaching 100% swiftness mastery, the user can activate the flash effect, passing through the space ahead. Qiansheng was surprised by what happened and wondered when he managed to get behind him. He received a very strong blow from MC, began coughing up blood, and fell to the ground. He walked on with a calm expression and thought that people like him belonged in the trash. The students looked at him in surprise and asked, "Did he see what happened? It looked like he just fell. What happened? Maybe he slipped." The student tried to hide his laughter and asked how he could have fallen so easily. Huang, with a puzzled expression, said that this time she also didn't see what happened. Class monitor Qi Yin stood next to them, thinking with a thoughtful expression that at the moment Qiansheng attacked, he had once again activated his unique warrior skill, swiftness. It was an enhanced form of swiftness, an instantaneous flash. However, what did he do at that moment to injure the opponent? Yet he so easily dealt with the opponent with a single move. Not only has he mastered the highest level of basic warrior skills, but he also applies them flawlessly in battle. The students watched what was happening and asked, "What happened to Qiansheng today? His opponent didn't even have time to move. How embarrassing." She thought that at that moment, he even considered not breaking the school rules in public. What happened to him? The system notified Bai Yi that he had received 50 profession points. Accumulation of elements dealt a critical hit to an enemy with an E-class star element, 50 star points received. He read this and thought that, as he thought, fighting a profession gives him experience, and defeating an enemy of a certain element gives elemental points. However, 50 points is too little. It seems he needs to start clearing the labyrinths as soon as possible. He chose the nuclear warrior because when advancing through the classes, it gains unique characteristics and extremely powerful skills that surpass other professions. He needs to level up and advance through the ranks faster than before. His thoughts were interrupted by Qiansheng getting to his feet and saying that he can't even think about leaving. He ran towards him with a dagger in his hand and thought he would kill him. He stopped because someone loudly said that he should stop. It was Hong Liang, the dean of the junior department of the Awakening Academy, and he asked if he hadn't disgraced himself enough yet. The protagonist looked at him and remembered who it was. He said with a serious expression that everyone must be tired from awakening. There was no point in standing here. It's the weekend anyway, so they should go home and rest. They should definitely tell their families about their awakened professions. MC was very surprised when he mentioned home, but Liang noticed him and asked if he didn't know that the school strictly forbade it. He didn't pay attention to him and thought that he had just been reborn, and at first he didn't even realize it. Since he went back 20 years in time, that means they are still alive. On the day of awakening, May 22nd, 2015, something else happened. How could he even forget about it? This is the most important thing. He immediately ran home, which made the dean very angry. He turned to the teacher and loudly said that she had better keep her student under control. He would pretend that nothing happened and not make a big deal out of it. Huang bowed to him and said that she was sorry. After some time, Qiansheng came to his office and said with a dissatisfied expression that if that guy had just been unlucky, he would never have lost to him. He was very surprised that Liang slammed his hand on the table and said that this was nonsense. Does he even understand what he did to him? The moment he lunged at him, he used a high-level skill, instant flash. However, more importantly, before he teleported, in that brief moment before he collided with him, he found the most vulnerable spot on his body and struck hard, completely breaking through his defense. This entire series of moves was performed using only the basic abilities of a warrior. However, even he, with 15 years of combat experience, could not have executed it with such precision. Their fight looked as ridiculous as if a max-level pro were playing with a child using only basic controls. This guy is not as simple as he thinks. At the same time, MC was running down the street and thought that if he thinks about it after reincarnation, besides revenge, what exactly is he obliged to do? He stopped in front of the house and thought that he must stop this at any cost, even if he has to give his life. At the same time, his father was watching TV, laughing loudly, and said that it was hilarious. Mom was standing nearby and washing dishes in the kitchen. He noticed Bai Yi, who entered the house and said that he finished classes early today. He looked at his mother, started to cry, and thought that he was so glad that she was alive. She said in sign language that she made his favorite hot and sour noodles. He called his mother and said that today he really wants marinated fish. She said in sign language, maybe tomorrow. Today she has already made noodles. She did not have time to finish because he politely asked her to go and said that he really wanted it. She, with a small smile, said in sign language that he was unbearable. She opened the closet and he said he would go with her. His father said his mother could go alone. What's his problem? He came back and didn't even say hello to his father? Isn't today his awakening day? He approached him and said he had to tell him the good news. He took 2 cans of alcohol with a smile and said he finished work early and came home to celebrate with him. The system announced that he was Bai Lingsheng, level 26, class C, profession, Electro Warrior. Stat bonus, 400%. Bai said with a serious expression, however, he didn't awaken today. Bad luck, awakening took too long, they didn't even make it in time. He looked at him with a serious expression and asked, then why did he come back so early? Dale's son awakened as a flickering rank. Father and son, both worthless. His son should be at least an abyss class, right? At one time, he awakened as an abyss class with nothing. He strained himself to support him and put everything into raising him. He should say what class he is? He was about to repeat that he didn't awaken, but Ling Sheng immediately hit him on the head with a bottle. He asked loudly with an angry expression, he goes to school pretending to be so diligent, but then awakens as a useless, dusty class? Does he want to disgrace him? He kicked him, and the protagonist thought that this man was an awakened and his father. However, he is also a cruel person who cannot control his emotions. So much time has passed that he almost forgot what happened the day of his awakening. After he learned that he awakened as a dust class, he started a big fight at home out of shame. His mother, as always, stood in front of him to protect him. Back then, he was too weak and scared. He beat his mother for a whole hour to vent his rage. That day, he broke her leg, and a strong blow to the head left her mentally unstable. Now he has awakened as a nuclear warrior of the E-class. He chose this class for its special properties, but he still needs time. Ling Sheng stood by his side while he knelt and ordered him to rise. The system announced that his stats were 600 strength, 508 speed, 652 endurance, 164 luck, 44 elemental power, 32 spirit, and 32 skills, block, and swiftness. MC looked at this and thought that he was a C-class abyss. Unlike Qiansheng, he had a lot of experience in real combat, and now he couldn't defeat him. His father grabbed his head and said that he was really wrong. He hit him again and said loudly that he shouldn't have let his mother give birth. He thought that he came back early today to wait for him. He won't stop until he gets the result. Under no circumstances should he let his mother get close to him. He continued to receive punches and thought that he at least got his mother out of the house. However, she had already returned and was shocked by what she had just seen. He was surprised by this and wondered how she had returned so quickly. Was she in a hurry to feed him? She looked at what was happening with a very worried expression, and Ling Sheng noticed her and asked, she's already here, right? They should see what kind of trash she gave birth to. He remembered how in his previous life in prison, a prisoner said he heard that he was the first to advance from a green rank profession. Usually, a profession must be at least blue rank and reach class A to enter the advancement stage. Why did he advance so early? Not only that, he immediately advanced from green rank to a unique platinum rank. Could he tell why he was arrested and brought here? This is the place where those sentenced to death go. Bai Yi said that he deserved to die. How could he kill his mother? Currently, he was about to attack his father, but he noticed this and knocked him back with a sharp blow. He fell to the floor after that and thought that an experienced awakened one, even without using skills, is much stronger than an ordinary person. Besides, an ordinary person would not be able to withstand such a blow. His mother, looking frightened, stood between them and began shaking her head, trying to stop him. Ling Shen closed the door to the apartment, sneered, and said that it was truly deadly. He called Ruyun and said that the day he found out that she was pregnant with a son, he was truly happy. He took a chair and said that he felt like the Bai family had hope to rise again. The two of them can't have a son, but he can. His family still has to rely on him to bring back the glory of their ancestors. He walked up to her with a very angry expression on his face and asked loudly, however, why did he awaken with the most worthless green rank profession? A worthless person who can't even advance. All because of her useless genes? He swung the chair to hit her. However, at that very moment, the protagonist used the instant flash skill. He dealt a powerful blow with his sword, and Ling Sheng managed to jump aside. He held his sword in his hand with a serious expression and said that he was not allowed to touch her. He looked at the small wound on his hand with a wide smile and said that it was interesting. Ryan looked at this with a very worried expression and tried to say something. He looked at them with a wide smile, considered it luck, and said that this was very good. He walked towards them and he looked at his father with a serious expression and thought that this should take a little longer. First, he needed to block. He didn't have time to finish his thought, because he ran up to him too quickly. In response to a very strong blow, he began to parry, but was unable to do so because his sword broke from the very strong blow. He was very seriously injured, and thought he had broken through directly. The difference in strength is several times greater. His ribs hurt as if they would break very soon. Ling Sheng swung his fist and asked loudly, did he dare disobey his respected father? The system notified that he had used the heavy black lightning skill. High speed. All attacks receive an electric shock effect. He continued to attack with his fist with a wide and cruel smile, and loudly asked if he was rushing too much. MC continued to try to block his punches, and thought there was no way he could dodge. He chuckled loudly and asked, he has a backbone. But so what? Such a weak profession. He should be killed anyway. He continued to block with a serious expression, and thought that in this life, he will not allow such a tragedy to happen again. His father took another chair and asked if he thought he was cool just because he awakened. He lifted the chair on his head and loudly asked, he doesn't even understand who is in charge here. They heard a loud knock on the door, and someone loudly said that they should open the door now. He turned around and loudly asked, who is ruining his moment? Bai Yi was still conscious and thought that they were here. Ling Sheng opened the door and with a displeased expression asked loudly, who is there and why are they banging on the door like that? Outside the door stood the inspector's deputy captain, Red A-Class Divine Priest Liang, and the investigating inspector, Blue C-Class Divine Priest Chen Jinwu. The deputy captain asked with a serious expression why no one had opened the door for so long and what they were doing there. He asked the deputy captain with a shocked expression why he was here. He showed a leaflet and said that they had received a report that the wanted criminal Snow had been spotted near this building. They were currently conducting a door-to-door search. Did he see anyone suspicious? He laughed in confusion and said that this man was shown on TV every day. If he had shown up, he would have definitely reported it. Liang saw his son, who was bleeding from his wounds, pointed his finger at him and was about to say something. Ling Xing put his hand on his shoulder and said that this stupid boy was too careless. He even fell while he was going grocery shopping. The deputy captain shouldn't worry about such a trifle. However, the protagonist said he was lying, that he was the one who hit him. 18 minutes ago, down the street, he called and said that he saw someone enter the Z-Way building, Block A, who looked very similar to Snow from the photo online. He thought he called from a local store before going home and that they were already searching that floor. He knew that if information about Snow appeared, the inspectorate would definitely move out in full force, but he didn't expect them to start an investigation so quickly. Although there was plenty of time, Liang asked with a serious expression, is he telling the truth? Ling Sheng, looking worried, said that he was just joking. How could he raise a hand against his own son? After all, he was in pain himself. He didn't play along with his father, and with a serious expression, said that he hit him on the arm with a chair and on the head with a bottle. All his wounds can be officially considered beatings. For awakened individuals who are unable to control their aggression and cause harm to others, the canon for regulating the actions of awakened individuals, Chapter 2, Article 11, states that if the offender poses a potential threat, they are to be immediately detained, followed by 15 days of imprisonment for awakened individuals. The police were very surprised by what he had just said. Ling Sheng, with a very angry expression, turned to him and loudly asked, is everything all right in his head? Liang, with a serious expression, stated his name and said that he was officially under arrest, has the right to remain silent. He didn't have time to finish because he was very angry about what happened, tried to go to his son and loudly insulted him. Jinwu grabbed him and loudly said that he should calm down. If he resisted, measures would be taken. They took him away, but he was still very angry and loudly said that he would get him. They closed the door. MC turned around and called his mother. She, looking frightened, called her son, quickly went to him and hugged him. He hugged her too and thought that this time he protected her. He had 15 days. He said that she should not worry, this was the last time. He thought that he had enough time to become stronger. He would not allow anyone to raise a hand against him again. Moreover, he managed to steal the key to the safe from him. For this thing, he betrayed his comrades without hesitation. This allowed him to rise from the very bottom of the E-class to the C-class. He approached the place where the safe was hidden and thought that he usually hid this in his room. He even hid it from his family. In his past life, he learned of its existence only after his death. He took out a dagger and thought that with this he could single-handedly clear the demon cave. At the moment, only caves allow you to change class. Now they are all under the control of a god and entry is allowed only to members of guilds. The only demon caves available to him are those controlled by the school and the secret demon caves that he learned about in his past life. He entered the secret demon cave of an unknown level and difficulty. He thought that he must be the fastest and surpass everyone. The system notified that the demon cave is a place where monsters live. Awakened ones can enter there, gain experience from fighting monsters, and also increase their level and strength. May 22nd, 2015, in the inspection room, detention room. The staff said that this time the alarm was triggered for the entire security team. Even the deputy head was sent. In the end, nothing was found. Was it a false alarm? Whether it's true or not, if rebels are involved, there's no time to relax. If Snow really is in their district on the holiday, It's a big problem. Jinwoo asked if he heard that he would return early this time. He was about to say something else, but Li Ang said that it was not something they should discuss. Ling Sheng called out to him loudly and said that he was begging for mercy. This was his first time. He wouldn't do it again. He heard that the deputy's wife was about to give birth. His friend opened the best postpartum center in Chushi district. He looked at him with a serious expression and asked, "Is he still trying to bribe the inspection?" He used to be a member of the guild. He started to leave the office and asked if he had any idea how he got to this point. He was about to say something about it, but Jinwoo said with a smile that if the bribe was found out, it wouldn't be a simple detention. He should rest. Tomorrow, he would be transferred to the prison of the awakened. He also left the office and said that he should just rest. He remained sitting behind bars and with a very dissatisfied expression on his face, he called Bai Yi. The next morning, he left his mother alone at home, left a note on his bed and thought that in 15 days he would be released from prison. Until then, he needed to become stronger as soon as possible. Demon caves were the only option. It could appear anywhere. It was another space parallel to their world. Entrance to it was through a door that appeared out of nowhere. Most demon caves were taken under guard by guilds as soon as they were discovered. Demon caves contained many demonic creatures and demonic ore resources, making it the best place for awakens to develop their abilities. However, caves are also very dangerous and usually require a team to enter after official verification. He entered the office located in a strange building and thought, however, caves are also very dangerous and usually require a team to enter after official verification. In his past life, this cave was only reported on the news after 5 years because it was hidden for too long. It was only discovered when the demons invaded the human world. F-class demon caves usually require 3 awakened E-class demons. E-class caves require a team of 5, 3 E-class and 2 D-class. Judging by the current time estimates, this cave has a 90% chance of being F-class. It is also the lowest level secret demon cave he can currently enter. The system announced that an undetected demon cave was being entered. The protagonist entered and thought that the cave was full of dangers and required the cooperation of various elemental and professional teams to increase the chance of victory. However, he has no other choice. He must become stronger alone as soon as possible. The system alerted him to the entrance to a demon cave with an unknown danger level. He thought the entire area was covered in ice and snow. It seemed to be the territory of cloud-type magical beasts. He noticed a couple of skeletons lying near a large monster, and thought that someone had already been here. A sleeping elemental beast, an ice bear, E-rank. He noticed another monster running nearby, and thought that the chance of encounter was 10%. This was an E-rank demon cave. Had they really not discovered it because most of the beasts were hibernating? A bloodthirsty forest snow wolf, an E-rank elemental beast, jumped at him. He thought that even one wolf was of a higher level than him. He jumped to the side, but the monster caught up with him very quickly. He managed to parry the monster's attack, and the wolf immediately jumped back. With a serious expression on his face, he dashed towards this monster. He delivered a very powerful blow with a dagger and killed this wolf. He thought that the A-class weapon hidden in that safe couldn't be simply purchased. After all, it made up for the gap in his combat power. The system announced that it was a Hongwu blade. Made of Hongwu stone, it was incredibly sharp and could cut through iron like butter. Strength 150 points, luck 50 points, stamina 100 points, vitality and armor penetration increased by 20%. He thought that beasts, however, had high defense. Even when hitting a weak spot, 3 or 4 hits were needed to defeat them. He was starting to miss the days when he was an L-class. To level up, he needed to kill about 20 wolves. The system announced that he had received 52 profession points. Accumulation of elements. Dealt a critical hit to an enemy with an E-class cloud element, received 50 cloud points. Received 1 snow wolf fang. He looked at this and thought that it took 10 levels to go from E to D-class. The growling of wolves caught his attention. He raised his head and noticed many monsters walking towards him. MC looked at this and thought that the smell of blood had attracted his friends. He looked at them with a serious expression and wondered if they would attack him in a pack. The monsters jumped towards him, and he killed one of them with a critical hit to the vulnerable spot. He used his skills and defeated the wolves one by one. He looked to the side with a serious expression and thought that one last blow remained to finish this. He ran forward very quickly and killed several monsters who were standing next to each other. The system announced that he had received many experience points and 18 snow wolf fangs. One more monster remained, the bloodthirsty king of snow wolves, a 4th level E-class demonic beast. He quickly charged, dealing multiple powerful blows and killing the monster. The system notified him that he had obtained a snow wolf diamond. He thought that he had successfully promoted himself to D-class. The system then notified him that he had been promoted to the 2nd tier, E-class. He had received 12 stat points, which he needed to distribute. Bai looked at this and thought that he had only killed 20 wolves, but he was already exhausted. E-class bodies had very weak stamina, and he needed to obtain a spatial backpack, or else he would lose a lot of loot. Most demon caves were monopolized by guilds, making solo leveling extremely difficult for an awakened being. The system notified him that the Snow Wolf Diamond was an extremely durable diamond used to craft weapons from special materials. Its market value was around 10,000 yuan. He thought that if he wanted to enter high-level demon caves, joining the Divine Corpse Guild was his only option. Awakening schools are institutions within guilds, created to scout for talent for their teams. For most students, the ultimate dream is to successfully graduate and join one of the guilds. However, being kicked out of a team could mean never advancing again. This jerk, after being kicked out, remained in Class C forever. However, walking alone is still too slow. Besides, it's terribly cold here. The longer he stays here, the more stamina he spends. He looked at the pack of wolves and had an idea. He started running away from these wolves, cutting the trees in his path with his dagger. His actions attracted the attention of several more wolves and a python. He stopped and saw many monsters around him. A loud explosion occurred on the ceiling of this cave, which attracted the attention of the monsters. The protagonist, with a serious expression, thought that this roar should have woken up all the monsters, and it was time for him to wake up too. An ice bear came to them, awakened by the noise. A level 8 E-class, cloud-type demonic beast. Berserk mode. Attacks all targets indiscriminately, damage is increased by 20%. He looked at this and thought that the ice bear entered berserk mode. It will attack everything that moves. He ran towards the crowd of monsters and killed them with blows of his dagger. He looked at the bear rampaging nearby and thought that he just needed to dodge and wait for an opportunity to finish him off. He killed monsters, gained experience and an item, and thought that although Class E beasts are ferocious, they are mostly mindless. The system notified that he had leveled up to 4th. He thought that the bear not only distracted the monsters, but also saved him a lot of stamina. However, if he wanted to gain experience, he still needed to deal the finishing blow. There was a crowd of monsters next to him, and he thought that even with the bear's help, he was still very tired. It was time for the next phase. After such destruction, the arena's capacity must be close to the limit. He raised his dagger above his head with a serious expression. Many monsters ran towards him, and he delivered a strong blow to the ground and thought that now they should fall. The ground beneath the monsters began to collapse, and he thought that during the fight he had been constantly analyzing the terrain. This wasn't a frozen lake, but an ice bridge supported between two cliffs. Monsters falling down died, and he received experience points for it. He thought this had destroyed most of the beasts. He just needed to deal with the rest using his remaining stamina. This was his fastest way to level up. The system announced that a new title had been unlocked, 1 versus 100. When fighting multiple enemies, all stats increased by 10%. MC thought that, however, even then, he was already thinking of one thing. Every demon cave has a final boss. For a Class E cave, the boss must be something like a fierce lion king. Wasn't the noise they raised enough to wake him up? Why hasn't he appeared yet? The monsters looked in one direction and started making loud noises. He looked in the same direction and wondered, was this an ice spell? It wasn't. He was mistaken. Energy flew at him. He started to run and thought that he hadn't been sleeping. He was just waiting for the perfect moment, when they would all get tired and gather in this place. The energy released by the monster trapped all the monsters in ice. He thought with a very tense expression that the moment when there was no escape was already here. He stopped at the edge of the abyss. His feet were also covered in ice, and he thought that the ice bridge was also part of his trap. He just needed to appear at the end and collect all the rewards. There was something hidden in this low-level cave. Several monsters came to him and he wondered, is this an intelligent boss? The system notified that there was an 11th level, D-class, cloud-type elemental demon, master of the azure forest. 2 monsters were level 10, E-class, cloud-type elemental battle demon, deputy leader, and the monkey demons of the azure forest. Bai Yi's body continued to be covered in ice, and the boss looked at him from the side with a wide smile. It was already 2 a.m., and he was stuck here, in a secret cave, encased in a block of ice. He was completely frozen. At this rate, his body would completely lose heat. The master of the azure forest raised his hand, pointing at him, and his henchmen immediately rushed towards Bai Yi. As he ran towards him, he understood that his only choice was to use all his energy to destroy the ice. But this would require a huge amount of stamina. The moment the enemy swung at him, he applied all his strength, shattering the ice, and at the same moment, he struck. The master of the forest was surprised. MC parried the enemy's attack. This is a skill that nullifies 100% of the damage if the block is performed in time. When reactivated within 0.09 seconds, there's a chance to send all physical damage back to the enemy. He caught his breath, and the system reported the skill, crushing. The awakened one uses all their energy to instantly break out of the state of control, which requires a large amount of stamina. Bai Yi wiped the blood from his face and thought that he would need time to cast such a powerful spell again. Before then, he had to defeat it. The master of the azure forest found this all quite amusing. He raised his hand and then clenched it into a fist, freeing the bear and everyone else from the ice. It roared loudly, and MC gritted his teeth nervously. Now he had to fight a cloud-type demonic beast. The nuclear element is inherently opposite to the cloud element, and with his current stamina, defeating these 2 apes would be difficult. If more appeared, his chances of victory would drop to 0. 2 apes, wolves, and a bear began to approach him menacingly. Despite this, he rushed forward, blocked the ape's attack, then noticed the second one approaching him from the side. It tried to strike, but he jumped aside in time and began breathing heavily. He realized that all this was useless. He simply had no strength. At that moment, the bear growled menacingly and rushed at him, and he gripped his sword tighter. The bear then struck him with its paw, sending him flying, but he managed to land softly. As soon as he looked up, he saw hundreds of eyes from his opponents staring straight at him, and he thought the surrounding environment was too cold. His stamina was almost at its limit. The master of the azure forest laughed at him. casting a spell and unleashing an ice storm on him. Seeing chunks of ice falling from the sky, he wondered in surprise. Had his skill's cooldown already expired? He quickly pulled himself together, his surprised expression replaced by confidence. In his past life, he had often faced all sorts of difficulties, and through these trials, he had trained his perception of possibilities. Now he only had two options. The first was to stay and continue fighting, but his stamina was already at its limit. Even if he withstood all the damage and defeated several high-level beasts, the chance of survival was 0. The second option was escape, but not an easy one. He turned sharply toward the cliff. Chunks of ice fell behind him, and he jumped, the ice reaching out for him, grabbing his leg, and when he began to fall to the bottom of the crevice, the ice completely encased him. The master of the forest didn't expect this, nor did his minions. Bai Yi, meanwhile, looked at the bottom of the crevice, quickly approaching him, and was confident in his plan. Time passed, and morning came. His mother walked into his room with a smile, and wondered if he was sleeping so long because it was the day off, but as soon as she saw that his room was empty, she froze in place. It was now around 10 a.m., and instead of her son, there was a folded blanket and a note on the bed. She took it and thought that something was wrong. If he had gone to a friend, he would have told her directly. There was no need to leave a note. What was happening to him? After returning home, he seemed to have become a completely different person. Why was she so anxious? Meanwhile, bloodstains appeared in the river at the bottom of the crevasse. When the ice bridge split, nearly 100 demonic beasts fell in after it, but he only leveled up by 3. He grabbed a sharp ice spike, trying to climb out of the river, and coughed, thinking about 60 demonic beasts destroyed, 40 of which survived. As he jumped, he knew there must be a river at the bottom of the crevasse, meaning the second option was his only chance of survival. But breaking through the ice again had used up almost all of his stamina. In addition, falling into the river from such a height had damaged his body too much. He lay down on the ground, and the system reported that he was experiencing active blood loss, a weakened state, and hypothermia on top of that. And now, trying to cope with all of this, he closed his eyes and wondered if he had really reached his limit. Soon, a beast found him. A huge saber-toothed tiger licked its lips, anticipating the taste of its prey, and with a menacing roar, it headed toward him. At that moment, MC plunged into memories. He remembered how his friends invited him for a drink, how they hugged him, how they offered him food, and how they asked for help when they didn't understand something. He also remembered his mother, who was very worried about him. And into all these wonderful memories burst the master of the Azure Forest and those idiots and traitors who wanted to quickly send him to hell, because he had reached his limit. These memories ignited strength within him, and he mentally exclaimed that he had no limits. It couldn't be. He quickly stood up, and when the saber-toothed tiger pounced on him, he grabbed it by the fangs and exclaimed that all these regrets from his past life, he would never, under any circumstances, allow that to happen again. He thrust the dagger between the beast's jaws and shouted that he had already lost everything once, that he had already died once, and that he would never die again. Gathering all the strength in his leg, he clenched it at the knee and swung it at the beast's head, breaking its fangs. After that, he struck it again, throwing it away, and taking the dagger, took a deep breath. Golden energy began to emanate from him, and he rose as monsters surrounded him from all sides. He said that only a desperate situation could cause a class upgrade. The decision to go through the labyrinth alone, to lure monsters, to jump off a cliff, he constantly throws himself into hopeless situations. The bear and wolves approached him from behind, leaving no escape route, and in front of him was the Ice Lord, a formidable tiger, who had already lost 2 fangs. He thought that all this was for the sake of getting rid of the sticky feeling from the past. The system reported that his adrenaline had increased. Due to extreme emotional stress, a maximum adrenaline surge was activated. That same feeling began to return, and the system reported the start of the promotion process. The conditions were not met, and the class promotion failed. The advanced skill Holy Swordsman's Core was learned. He glanced at his opponent and thought that although it wasn't enough for a class promotion, he had managed to master the ultimate skill ahead of time. He swung his dagger and declared that it was time for him to cleanse them. The system continued to report an increase in adrenaline, and he glared menacingly at his opponents, after which the tiger roared loudly and pounced on him. He assumed a fighting stance, waited for the right moment, then swung his dagger, drawing a circle, his skill, Sanctuary. After that, he froze, and the monsters' bodies were cut into pieces, and for killing them, he began to receive numerous job points. From such a blow, even the saber-toothed tiger was defeated. Bai Yi glanced at his hand, which emanated a golden aura. The system informed him that he had obtained a blood fang, an ice beast hide, and 2 bear bones. His level had risen to 9, and he had also gained 12 stat points that he could distribute. The Sanctuary effect had activated, removing fatigue and restoring stamina. He had obtained numerous snow wolf fangs and 1 core, as well as the title Ice Field Wanderer, which adds 100 points to resistance to cloud elemental creatures and reduces cold damage. He had learned the ultimate skill, Sanctuary. Afterwards, he looked up at the peak and told the master of the Azure Forest that he would return to deal with him. His stats were now at a completely different level, along with a large bonus from his weapon. He wiped his blade and reflected that having reached the new level, he felt that killing E-class monsters had become very easy, and he now barely felt the cold. The shrine can accumulate all the damage it receives and unleash it on a group of enemies at once. It activates only after sufficient fatigue and damage have accumulated. With it, his stamina is now fully restored. He began to climb up and thought that he didn't know how long he'd spent in this cave. He needed to hurry home, otherwise his mother would start worrying. The master of the Azure Forest sat in his hut with the monkeys, resting. He heard something, opened one eye, and then MC smashed the roof of the shrine with a bear carcass and burst inside, saying that they met again. He had now reached level 10, and for killing the ice bear, he received 64 profession points. Meanwhile, his mother was very worried about him. She looked out the window, wondering where he had gone and why he hadn't returned yet. The dinner she had just prepared was waiting for them on the table. Meanwhile, the monkeys were alarmed. They saw the bear's dead body and Bai Yi standing on it. The wolves guarding their hut had also already been defeated. The monkeys remained motionless, awaiting their master's command, and the master of the Azure Forest pointed forward with a grin. After which, one of the monkeys jumped onto the bear's body and attacked Bai Yi. He concentrated, parried the blow, and struck back, which proved fatal for the monkey. For this, he received 70 stat points, and the master of the forest, watching his minions being chopped to pieces, became agitated and entered the battle himself. He swung his staff, unleashing an icy storm on Bai Yi, but since he was now immune, he was unfazed. He rushed toward the enemy, and the system reported that the cloud elemental resistance effect had been activated, successfully mitigating the cold damage. The forest master became nervous. He glanced at the bag next to him, then took out an ice staff from it and took cover behind his minions. MC said that once he dealt with him, he would be able to reach Class D. Using the lightning flicker skill, he dashed through the monkeys and swung his dagger, causing the forest master's hand to fly upward. He stared at his bleeding wound in shock, then nervously turned his gaze to Bai Yi. He turned around, bidding him farewell, and swung his dagger several times, dealing him numerous blows. After this, the master of the Azure Forest, the leader of the 11th level Cloud Mage, was defeated. For this, he received 1,000 points and was successfully promoted to a nuclear D-class fighter. The demon monkeys froze, hesitating to approach him. The system reported that the items were waiting to be picked up. Enough cloud elemental energy had accumulated, a new profession was about to awaken. He looked at his weapon in surprise and thought that he had fought so much that he had completely forgotten about it. Had he accumulated enough cloud elemental energy? Red flashes appeared around him. The system reported that he had received the first level E-class Cloud Mage profession. He could change this at any time. He glanced at the system window and wondered if this was a red profession. Even though it was E-class, since it was red, he received a 200% bonus. Its stats were almost the same as those of his D-class warrior. After the master of the Azure Forest, 2 items remained. The first was a D-class mage's weapon, which gave 40 points of elemental power and spirit, and could expand the area of effect of magic by 50%. The second item was a magic bag, which could hold up to 20 items. He bent down to pick it up while the monkeys watched him in surprise, and when he stood up, they flinched in fear. He looked at them and said with a smirk that, come to think of it, his henchmen were still here. He switched to the Cloud Mage profession and, taking a new weapon, decided to try it out, since he had never had anything like this before. A new day had dawned. It was already 5 a.m. His mother still hadn't touched her food. All this time she sat on the couch and waited for him, and was very worried. When the door opened and creaked, she immediately stood up excitedly, and he apologized to her for making her wait so long. She immediately ran up to him and hugged him tightly, starting to cry, and he noticed that she'd been waiting for him all this time without even eating. He has a proposal. Maybe she wants to listen to it? He suggested that she leave here, far away from him. After that, he went to the merchant. Using the magic bag, in addition to the main weapon, he took out about a dozen of the most valuable artifacts. When he showed these artifacts to the merchant, he appraised it and said that he would buy it for 800. MC said that he would sell it only for 8,000. And the man immediately became indignant and exclaimed, "Is he kidding? He wants that kind of money for this tiny core?" Bai Yi snatched it from his hands and said that he was leaving, and the man began to bargain with him. He said that he would take it for 2,000, but MC said that he would sell it only for 5. Then the merchant raised the price to 3,000 and exclaimed that this was his final word. But MC raised the price again, and in the end they agreed on 7,000. As soon as the deal was done, he left with a smile and looked at the money, thinking that in his past life he knew a lot of magic ore traders, so he would definitely be able to sell these things profitably. With the proceeds, he will rent a great place for his mother. Before, she had never had a single happy day. This time, he just wants her to be able to enjoy life. After that, he went home to pick up his mother, and together they went to look at a new place. While she was looking around the house with interest and surprise, he watched her, and realizing that she liked it, he paid the rent, and his mother, of course, became worried and began to refuse. That same day, they moved into a new house. His mother was smiling as she cooked dinner in the new kitchen, and he thought that he hadn't seen her smile so freely in a long time. He went to his room and sat on the bed, thinking that he had sorted out his housing. moved up to D class, and even received a new profession. But his father was still in prison, so he couldn't relax. Until everything was completely settled, he couldn't calmly seek revenge. He had to go back to school tomorrow. He glanced at his bracelet, which he had just made from a magic stone. It was a weapon that could be polished and worn. It increased elemental strength and spirit by 40, and could also expand the area of effect of magic by 50%. After that, he clenched his fist and decided to look for that very thing. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Qiansheng and his team emerged from the portal, and one of his subordinates said that his results had improved significantly. His sister immediately ran up to him with a bottle of water, fearfully offering him a rest, but he brushed it aside and exclaimed that while there was still time, they would head to the next labyrinth for further training. He remembered Bai Yi and thought that no one would progress faster than him. He would show everyone who was the genius here during the testing. He successfully upgraded to a 3rd tier E-class Astra Assassin. Meanwhile, a woman was looking at the list of awakened people and learned that there wasn't a single gold profession among them this year. It looked like there wasn't much to count on in this combat simulation. It was May 25th, 7:30 a.m. Ryun had made breakfast for her son and was now smiling as he hurriedly ate it all. He worriedly asked why she hadn't woken him up. She answered with a smile that he had slept so well that she couldn't disturb him, then patted his head and told him to eat calmly. Sometimes it was okay to be late. He smiled and thought that he really hadn't slept so peacefully in a long time. He had never eaten breakfast with her like this before, with a light heart. At that moment, his mother squeezed his shoulder, getting his attention, and he asked if something was wrong. She asked if he needed anything. Toys, maybe books, some gadgets? He smiled and laughed, asking if she wanted to give him a gift. But why all of a sudden? She pointed to the calendar and reminded him that his birthday was next Friday, and he was surprised to realize that he had completely forgotten about it. June 5th was his birthday. So much time had passed in his past life after her death. He never celebrated a birthday again. Over time, he completely forgot about it. But was there anything at all that he wanted? He bit into a rice bun and wondered what he wanted most of all. He looked at his smiling mother and thought that he already had everything he wanted, but now he needed to achieve his next goal, to kill him. After that, he went to the academy. The teacher gathered them in the gym and asked if they had a good rest over the weekend. Now they face hellish preparation for the battle simulation. He hopes no one doubts the importance of this test. Their awakened academy is a middle school controlled by a divine guild. The guild will monitor their every move, and the battle simulation is the first stage they will perform on after awakening. This battle will serve as their final exam upon graduating from middle school and will be broadcast live. More importantly, the best participant in the simulation will have a chance to join the high school leveling. Leveling is the annual and most direct opportunity to enter the divine guild. The school selects the best students from the middle high school to go together to Shengye, the headquarters of the Divine Guild. MC thought about it. That's where he and Master met, and it's also the birthplace of that idiot. But he and Master never crossed paths. He only joined the Corps after he had already become part of the Divine Corp. To find it now, he needs to score high on the assessment and level up. That's the fastest way. After that, Yunhao excitedly exclaimed that the combat simulation was already this Friday. He was so scared and excited that his blood was boiling. But Chen Shi wasn't as excited and said that rumor had it that the simulation would take place in a demon cave. Could they handle it? The teacher pointed to the training hall and suggested that they begin formal training. The first stage was physical training. It was a gravity hall, and everyone needed to do 10 rounds of shuttle runs. Yunhao enthusiastically exclaimed that the hot-blooded guy was ready and would do 20 rounds. They headed toward the gravity hall, but Bai Yi approached the teacher, declaring that he didn't want to train there. His classmates looked at him with puzzled glances, and the teacher frowned slightly and said that he had heard about his conflict with Qiansheng last weekend, but he shouldn't think that just because he defeated a red professional, he didn't have to train. He said that he wanted to undergo more specialized training. His teacher was surprised and asked what he meant, then smirked and asked if he thought his current training method was wrong. MC said that physical training was necessary for almost every awakened, so entering the gravity chamber wasn't a mistake. But shuttle running was only suitable for warriors, assassins, and other professions that value speed and coordination. Not everyone needs it. Mages and cultivators are better off entering the elemental chamber and training their control over them. Due to differences in attributes and habits, the emphasis in training should be different. The man gave him a displeased look and remarked that it seemed like he was teaching the teacher how to do his job. Qi Yin, meanwhile, thought that the training method he was talking about was the same as instructor Dongyang's from the Divine Corps, but he had suggested it only recently. If not for the video her dad brought, she wouldn't have known about it either. Bai Yi was able to think along the same lines as the man. Chen Shi whispered to Bai Yi and said that even if he did have some ideas, he should consider his teacher's feelings. After all, he was the most authoritative coach in the school, and yet he was so bluntly contradicting him. Meanwhile, the teacher placed his hand on Bai Yi's shoulder, causing the boy to flinch. Then, with a smile, he said that the training method he was talking about was also quite interesting. It was just that he hadn't thought everything through. Chen Shi placed his hand on his chest and exhaled in relief, after which the teacher said that there were too many students in the school, and it would be very difficult to accommodate everyone's unique characteristics in such a short period of time. Simply put, The combat simulation was the graduation performance of all high school students. If everything went wrong, it could ruin a student's life. Whether a teacher should choose a student's future for him or let him choose for himself, that was also a big dilemma. MC glanced at the students entering the gravity hall and thought that even though his family was dysfunctional in his past life, he was lucky to meet many good teachers, thanks to whom he grew up less lost. He looked at the teacher and asked him to trust him. He wouldn't let him down at this graduation speech. In that case, the teacher asked him to tell him how he wanted to train. He awakened as a nuclear warrior, right? MC pointed to the elemental hall and asked him to set the elemental neutralization to maximum, which took everyone by surprise. He awkwardly scratched the back of his head and said that even though he was a warrior, he wanted to balance his abilities and challenge his weaknesses. He thought that he couldn't just tell everyone that he wanted to train as a mage. Chi Yin raised her hand and told the teacher that she also wanted to train her control over the elements. She was a mage after all. After that, the man grabbed his head and told them to do whatever they wanted. Just don't let him down in the final exam. After that, they headed to the elemental hall, and Chi Yin invited Bai Yi to practice together. He disagreed and said he'd go into a separate room, and she exclaimed that training with a partner was faster. Did he just reject her? He confirmed it, and she exclaimed that he'd ignited her fighting spirit. Chen Shi, watching them, hunched over tiredly and told the teacher that he was at the very end anyway. Maybe he could find a place where he could be lazy? The man patted him on the shoulder and forbade him, while MC entered the room and the elemental neutralization began. He thought that he was familiar with the warrior profession, but he was still a beginner in the magician profession, and he should master it as quickly as possible during this time. Besides, he needed to hide his trump card and let others know that he could get a different profession. The elemental neutralization meanwhile reached -30%, and his body began to be covered with a crust of ice. He thought that this school was under the supervision of the gods. They knew his every move, so revealing himself too early could make him a target for these people. Meanwhile, Chi Yin exclaimed that she wouldn't let him get past her, and he thought that if possible, it would be better for him to avoid contact with his classmates. Soon, classes were over. Bai Yi took his bicycle and headed home, and those two, Chen Shi and Yun Hao, caught up with him. Panting from running, they asked him not to go so fast, and he thought that in his past life, they were his best friends in middle school. They often hung out together after class because they were outsiders and bullied. This was his only happy time in middle school. He got on his bicycle and sped up, thinking that in this life his goal was revenge. Useless connections would only slow him down. Yun Hao shouted after him, asking what's wrong with him. Just like on Friday, he ran off alone, even though they'd agreed to be the strongest and most inseparable trio. His friend asked if he felt like he'd gotten stronger. He seemed more confident after awakening. He lowered his head and said, upset, that someone riding a bicycle would hardly agree to wait for someone walking. After that, they continued on, but at their own leisurely pace. It turned out that MC was waiting for them. He called out to Chen Shi and advised him to get his lungs checked soon. The boy was slightly surprised, but Yun Hao was delighted and exclaimed that he knew it. Was he waiting for them to go home together? He got on his bike and told him that wasn't true at all. They wouldn't catch up with him. The boy became very angry and exclaimed, did he just want to make fun of them? If he hadn't spent all his strength running back and forth, he would have definitely caught up with him. Chen Shi noticed he'd only done 6 sets, and he exclaimed indignantly that he was acting as if he'd done more. Bai Yi, meanwhile, thought that in his previous life, Chen Shi had suddenly been diagnosed with a lung disease in high school, causing him to stop going to school and die soon after. Even if they weren't friends in this life, he still wanted him to be healthy. Yun Hao became very angry and asked why he'd suddenly become so cold. He was really annoying. His friend agreed that he'd changed a lot, but he still felt like he was the same. Meanwhile, Dongyang was relaxing on the beach of the Holy Nation, a training ground for new recruits. A young man approached him and said with a smile that he'd heard that a newcomer who'd just joined the Divine Guild had recently performed very well. Was he the one who broke all the records? He replied that he was praising him and had come to introduce himself. Evening came. While they were having dinner, MC told his mother to try not to leave the house alone anymore. He would come home earlier in the evening and bring the groceries himself. She only nodded in response, and he thought that this was still not enough. He had to provide his mother with a more stable and secure life as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in the prison for the awakened, his father came to the cafeteria for dinner. He handed the cafeteria worker a bribe and quietly said that he was leaving it to him. He smirked in response and told him not to worry, everything was already settled. He would be able to leave tomorrow. A new day arrived, Tuesday, and Bai Yi was already at the academy training. During this time, he had basically mastered the controls of a mage. The main thing was the timing of application and calculation of the elemental power. Yun Hao, meanwhile, was trying to run at least 10 laps. Wednesday arrived, and Chen Shi felt ill, finding it hard to breathe. That evening, they wanted to invite Bai Yi to dinner, but he left because he wanted to go home early. His friends sighed in disappointment, and MC waved them off, telling Yun Hao that his shooting skill required too much preparation before firing, and that he should practice his starting movements. The boy immediately lit up with energy and was eager to try it out. Thursday arrived, and after school, Chen Shi went to the school hospital to have his lungs examined. The doctor said it was good that he arrived for the examination on time. This type of parasitic lung tumor develops very quickly as it grows. He should definitely make an appointment for surgery at the main hospital soon. If he removes the tumor, everything will be fine. The boy thanked him and, remembering Bai Yi's words, thought with horror that if it weren't for the school medical examination, he wouldn't have even thought to get a CT scan of his lungs. How did he even know there was something wrong with his lungs? What even happened to him? While he was descending the stairs in thought, he heard the voices of other students talking about Qian Sheng, saying that he had done something wrong again. He had already risen to the 4th level, E class, so he would definitely be first in the assessment. The boy exclaimed in surprise, how did he even do that? Doesn't it require going to the demon cave to level up? His friend asked, didn't he know that? He has his own demon cave at home for training the family army. By the way, does he remember the guy who defeated him last weekend? Today after school, he's going to teach that guy a lesson. He said before, with that kind of character, he won't sit idly by. This time, he took a weapon with him. He definitely planned to deal with that boy outside of school. Hearing this, Chenxi shuddered in fright and began breathing heavily. He anxiously ran forward down the corridor and thought that he shouldn't interfere with the affairs of such people, but he still had to help Bai Yi. Outside of school, they would definitely bully him. Maybe they would call others to torment him together. But what use was he anyway? Thinking about this, he immediately stopped and slowed to a walk. He was a complete loser. He didn't even have normal fighting skills. Maybe Bai Yi could handle it himself? He didn't have to go against them at all. He grinned nervously and thought that after all, if he met bad people, his principle was to stay away. He broke the lock on the armory door and opened it, thinking that he had saved him after all. He owed him his life. Even if he died, he still had to help him. He took the weapon and mentally told Bai Yi to wait for him, after which Qian asked in surprise, why did he burst into the room with a weapon? Hearing her voice, he flinched in fright, after which he turned a worried look to her and she asked, what happened? Why is he in such a hurry? He exclaimed that he had to go to save Bai Yi, and as soon as she heard about this, her face gloomed. Meanwhile, MC drove into an alley. He told his stalker to get out. After all, he had been following him all this time from the school. Does he want to talk to him? Qiansheng emerged from the shadows with a weapon in his hands and threateningly said that he came to deal with him last weekend. He turned to him and asked, does he think he can defeat him now? He confirmed this and, taking advantage of the acceleration, pounced on him and exclaimed, did he think he was messing around all this time? He smiled widely, confident in his victory, and jumped behind him. Immediately after, Bai Yi took out a dagger. He quickly turned around and struck, breaking his weapon. He thought in surprise, is his attack power superior to his? But how is that possible? MC asked. So he decided that only he had become stronger? Gripping the dagger more comfortably, he pounced on him, and knocking him onto his back, plunged the dagger into the ground next to him. Qiansheng looked at his dagger in fear. His first battle was his strongest impression. After long training and growth, in that moment, he suddenly felt that even if they were the same age, there was someone in front of him whom he could never surpass. He asked in surprise, so he had grown too? What was his level now? How did he do it and why? He began to get angry and shouted that it was impossible. He trained extra after school, studying to become better. He tried so hard, so how can he still be faster than him? Bai Yi paused for a moment, then asked with a smirk, did he try? He pulled out a dagger and held it to his neck, asking, has he ever died? Qiansheng became agitated and told him to stop talking nonsense. Let him kill him or torture him. Let him do what he wants. He has been looking down on him for a long time, right? MC confirmed this and, throwing the dagger over his shoulder, said that he didn't hate him that much. He dragged him all this way, but he didn't attack from behind, and he didn't call for backup. He came alone, so he just wanted to test his strength on him, right? The guy gritted his teeth in anger and told him to stop talking. Either he would kill him today, or wait for him to kill him, and let him not talk to him as if he could see right through him. Bai Yi turned away from him and said that he took back his words about hatred. Meanwhile, his friends hid behind the trash cans and watched. Chenxi quietly said that it seemed like they didn't need to do anything right now, and MC meanwhile let go of Qiansheng and said that he had actually been waiting for him. They could make a deal. He would tell him how to become stronger, faster, but in exchange, he had to give him something. It was Friday, May 29th, the day the testing was supposed to take place. The teachers and students gathered in the large hall, and the man said that the week of training was over. The combat simulation was about to begin, but first he wanted to clarify something for them. Even though it was called a combat simulation, they were entering a real labyrinth. Most of its power was sealed behind a barrier, but there was still danger. There are many monsters in the cave, so let them act within their abilities. For their safety, they also assigned capable seniors to accompany them. They usually don't participate in combat, but in case of danger, they will intervene and end the simulation. They will form teams of 4 or 5, with one senior leading 3 or 4 students into the dungeon. They can choose between F-class or E-class caves. Of course, the E-class cave is very difficult, and if they are insufficient in strength, he advises them not to choose it. Failure in the test could result in a loss of learning points. Now, let them begin choosing the labyrinth level. Once everyone has made their choice, they will form teams accordingly. He ordered the students choosing the E-class labyrinth to raise their hands. Among them were Qiyin, Qiansheng, and a few others. Chenxi worriedly whispered to Yun Hao that they were so confident that they dared to challenge the dangerous E-class. His friend nervously said that if he had a non-green profession, he would have tried too. The teacher said that out of 180 students, 8 chose the E-class labyrinth. Qi Yin was surprised that Bai Yi didn't raise his hand, after which the teacher was about to announce those who got into the F-class labyrinth, but MC interrupted him and raised his hand, declaring that he would like to challenge their school's D-Class Jade Spirit Labyrinth. Clearly not expecting this, the teacher stared at him in surprise, and then surprised exclamations were heard throughout the hall. Jiansheng frowned, and the teacher asked, "He's kidding? Who goes straight to D-Class?" Han Liang exclaimed that it couldn't be. The D-Class Demon Cave is too dangerous, usually high school students go there. MC didn't let him finish and asked, "Does the school regulations say that you can't take caves of this level? The rules of the simulated battle allow you to choose your level. The school's mission is to find talent for the Divine Core, and the standards for this talent are courage, strength, responsibility, and giftedness. Is he really going to deprive him of the chance to prove himself?" They both released their energy, and Han Liang reminded him that only teams can enter the caves, and then he declared that he could go alone. The man gave him a displeased look and said that there are rules, that they protect the students, and that solo entry is prohibited. Then Qiyin raised her hand and happily said that she was also choosing Class D. Looking at her, he pronounced her name in surprise and exclaimed, "Are you crazy? If something happens to her, how will he look her father in the eye?" She enthusiastically answered him that she also wanted to get the highest score, and actually, she just wanted to test her strength. She winked at Bai Yi, and he raised his hand, saying that he was abandoning the team and would go through this cave alone. Hearing his refusal again, she became very indignant and ran up to him, and the teacher patted her on the head, smiling, saying that his refusal didn't count. Han Liang was indignant and exclaimed that they had only awakened a week ago and already thought they were strong, but he didn't stop them from doing so any longer, after which, the teacher thoughtfully said that in that case, only the two of them would be in Class D. Most likely, no upperclassman would want to risk it with them. Then Zealand raised his hand and said that he would go. The flowers of their nation still needed protection. The teacher smiled and said that if he was going, then he was at peace. Seeing him, Qiyin was slightly surprised. After all, he almost got into the elite school building, and MC looked at this guy doubtfully and thought that he had never heard of this. Meanwhile, Zilin mentally called him another peacock who doesn't know his limits. He's in such a hurry to spread his feathers in front of everyone, without even assessing himself. After this, the teacher opened the portal and said that since the teams were formed, they would begin the test immediately. Inside the cave, they would be monitored by professional equipment at all times, and the entire test would be recorded. He waved his hand and ordered them to give it their all, to see who could score the most points this time. The protagonist thought the Awakened Academy was built on the site of a once-conquered Great Demonic Cave. It houses both a high school and a middle school. The Great Demonic Cave has transformed numerous smaller caves around it, perfect for testing students. Most of them are controlled at levels F to D. Entering the labyrinth means the start of a simulated battle. But all trials are broadcast live, and every action will be recorded. This means he needs to be careful not to reveal all his trump cards in the face of unknown threats. The Lingyu Demonic Cave? This is what he needs. After some time, they entered the cave. Zilin stepped forward and declared that they need not worry. He would protect them. Even in an unsealed D-class demonic cave, he had already experienced this with others. Qiyin asked how strong the monsters in a D-class cave were. He said they were usually E5 to D5, roughly level 5 to 15. The stronger monsters in the school caves are sealed, so D-class creatures almost never appear, let alone bosses. Still, she shouldn't underestimate high-level E-class monsters. Their attack power and speed can be overwhelming. After all, she'd only just awakened, so to them, she was still small fry. He'd try to find her weaker monsters so she could earn points. She should relax. Her senior was here. He wouldn't let a newbie get hurt. He then looked at the protagonist in surprise, pointed a finger at him and shouted, "Hey, if he runs so far ahead, he might provoke the monsters." The protagonist responded by saying he was talking too much. Turning around, he added, he should stay quietly behind him. He didn't need his help. Zealand thought irritably, "What?" At that moment, an image appeared on the large screen. The broadcast of this year's simulated battle began. People from various places watched the unfolding scene. Meanwhile, at the Ultima campus, the Ultima campus vice captain, holding a phone in his hand, said, "Captain, she should watch the stream. It'll be fun." One of the juniors chose D-class dungeons. She was surprised. "What kind?" He said, "That's funny. It's the most worthless green warrior." He wanted to know where he got his confidence from. Meanwhile, Chen Shi waved his tambourine and shouted that it shouldn't come here. Their team was fighting in a sealed F-class demon cave. A student next to him said, "He's just a spellcaster. He should stand behind and buff him. No need to be so nervous." A firebat and an F-class firecat were flying towards him. He shouted, "How can an F-class demon lair be so scary? Low-level monsters below level 1 are F-class." Meanwhile, an E-class star leopard and an F-class fierce fang were heading towards another group. They were in a sealed E-class demon lair. A student, healing a comrade, asked if he was alright. At this moment, Qiansheng turned to them and shouted, if they couldn't handle it, he would do it himself. He ran forward and thought he'd definitely overtake Bai Yi. His strength increased by 32%, critical by 20%, vampirism by 15%, and he stabbed his weapon into the monster. Meanwhile, MC was in a sealed D-class demon lair. He successfully killed an E-class enraged manamane and gained 30 EXP. Several more bodies of defeated enraged manamanes lay nearby, from which he also gained points. Qiyin asked in surprise, how did he do that? He said that all the monsters here were sealed, so they could only use half their power. That's why they weren't that hard to deal with, she said, but even with half his power, he was fighting a whole horde at once. It seemed she still had a long way to go. He walked forward and said, "There's no need to compare yourself to others. She just needs to be herself." She held the book to her chest and asked, "Does he have to speak so pompously?" She would try her best. At that moment, Zilan frowned and thought he'd taken all the credit. Then he folded his arms and said, "This is an E-class dungeon. He shouldn't be arrogant. It's better to be careful." As his elder, he would still give him a few words of advice. Chi-Yin, she should deal with the monsters coming from the right. He's doing well, of course, but since this is his first time in the demon cave, he pointed to the side and said, "Besides, this is a labyrinth with 3 caves. It won't be easy." He walked forward and said he would take care of the left flank. After a while, they approached the seal and several other monsters. Zilan wondered if he had ignored him again. MC had said the monsters on the right were weaker. Could she handle it alone? Chi-Yin asked in surprise, "Alone?" Zilan thought, this brat has no respect for his elders at all. Then the protagonist said, "This symbolic battle tests everyone's abilities. After all, she had come for the test too. Didn't she want to get a good result?" She replied that she understood, and she would handle it. Zilan, still indignant, thought if he didn't want it the easy way, he'd have to do it the hard way. With these thoughts, he created a bow in his hand. Meanwhile, the teachers were watching the broadcast. They were saying, "It's simply unbelievable. Bai Yi had single-handedly taken down so many E-rank monsters." One of them leaned closer to the screen and asked what his level was now. The man sitting in front of the screen said the report was still at E1. The exact level was unknown. E3, maybe even E4. And not only that, he took on the monsters on the left himself and sent Chi-Yin to the right. He noticed their elemental weakness and dispatched the plant mage Chi-Yin to deal with the star monsters. Even though these were individual tests, he made the right tactical decision. It seems he has an excellent grasp of the situation as a whole. At that moment, the teacher, remembering how the protagonist had told him to believe him, said, "So this guy wasn't just bragging. What would he do next?" At that moment, the protagonist, striking another monster, thought he had immediately noticed that the star monsters were mostly coming from the cave on the right. Not only were they low level, but they were also vulnerable to plant elements. At that moment, Chi-Yin ran away from a huge monster and shouted, "Wall of vines." Several vines blocked the monster's path and she shouted, "One more time." She used the poison effect. Vines enveloped the monster and she shouted, "Pull in." A system window appeared in front of her, stating that she had successfully killed a level 6 E-class starground beetle and gained 30 experience points. She clenched her fist in joy and shouted, she'd succeeded again. The protagonist, looking at her, thought that when mages reach level 6, they receive their primary job skill. For her, it's creating a poisonous wall of plants. Her plant mage skill, Vine Wall, allows her to quickly grow a web of vines with poisonous thorns. Considering this was her first time in a dungeon, her ability to calmly fight higher level monsters alone, and even figured out how to use walls to trap them, clearly showed her talent. E-class monsters needed to be sealed. She could handle that on her own. At this rate, even with a live broadcast, he could conceal his true strength and still achieve a high score. But he had to keep in mind that they were accompanied by cameramen. The protagonist approached the seal and wondered how to carry out the next part of the plan. At that moment, Zilan thought, do they think they're the smartest? They don't care about him. They're senior. Since they can rely on themselves so completely, they should try this. With these thoughts, he aimed and released an arrow of light, aiming at Chi-Yin. She looked ahead in surprise, but the arrow flew past and into the cave. Zilan shrugged, surprised. He just wanted to buff her, so why did she dodge it? The next second, an enraged monster, a 2-headed maned lion level 11 D-class, came running from the cave straight at Chi-Yin. The MC turned sharply, seeing the monster. Chi-Yin tried to create a wall of vines, but the lion easily covered it in flames. It approached her, its jaws wide open. She thought she was finished. Zilan chuckled at that moment. The protagonist ran forward, using swiftness, a temporary increase in speed by over 50%, the increase depending on reaction and skill. He flew forward, swinging his weapon. Then he looked to the side in surprise. The monster's second head was aimed at Chi-Yin. He abruptly attacked the monster and used instant flash. Upon reaching 100% swiftness mastery, the user can activate the flash effect, passing through the obstacle ahead. He slashed the monster's head, then landed, weapon held out in front of him, thinking, how can this monster be so fast? Watching them, Zilan smiled and thought that he knew this dungeon very well. Most of the D-class monsters are sealed here, but there is one catch, the constantly returning 2-headed maned lion. I don't care how confident they are, they're just newly awakened rookies. Now they'll see how they handle a D-class monster, especially with a skill that enhances it. The monster had the effect of an arrow of light. Gravity was reduced by 10 times, damage and speed were significantly increased. He thought, the fastest 2-headed lion. The monster also had berserk buffs, attack plus 10%, speed 50%. MC thought, will he really have to use all his strength? Then he put his hand in front of Chi-Yin and said, back off, she can't handle him now. She thought she was scared for a second. Damn. Then the lion jumped at them. Chi-Yin put her hand forward and shouted, he. She charged the monster's body with vines and shouted, another layer, triple wall of vines. The protagonist turned around in surprise, looking at her. She put her hand to her chest and told him to let her help. She won't be a burden, and even though it's a D-class monster, she will fight too. Zilan thought irritably, Has this girl gone crazy? She was almost devoured by a lion just a minute ago. The protagonist said he thought she would be scared, but she quickly recovered. She replied, of course. She trained so hard. She can't lose like this. Besides, with him by her side, she's absolutely sure she won't die. He turned to the monster and said she just used 3 layers of her skill at once. Her elemental power is limited, so she can't waste it anymore. She clenched her fist and said that she knows. He thought that the Chi-Yin from his past life was already shining in middle school. He remembered how she said with a smile, "Hello everyone. Her name is Chi-Yin. Her dream is to enter a divine guild and become a divine officer." He thought, a confident, optimistic, and generous girl. Even though he heard that she had an influential family behind her, she was kind to everyone. She became the class representative in middle school and was always serious and responsible. After that, he lost sight of her. Perhaps she continued living a normal, quiet life, but now she is someone he can trust. If there are no more incidents, he must pass this test, hiding his true strength. Zealand, watching them, thought, do they really think they have what it takes? This wall of vines won't hold out for even a few seconds. He gritted his teeth and thought that a real fight couldn't be carried out on their confidence alone. With their strength levels, they would never be able to cope with this enhanced D-class beast. When they finally start begging for mercy and have no choice but to ask him for help, he will begin to teach them what it means to respect their elders. At that moment, the monster completely broke free from the vines. MC said that he would distract the lion. This is the nuclear element. She must learn when to act. She shouted that she understood. Then they jumped in different directions, and the protagonist shouted, "Forward." He began to run from the monster and thought that it had just injured him, so he became the main target. He approached the water, then decisively leaped into the depths. The monster leaped after him, and MC shouted, "Now!" She shouted, "Vine wall." It caught the monster's body, lifting it above the water. She shouted, "Squeeze!" A system window appeared in front of them saying, "Berserk, ineffective, core status, disabled, cannot escape. Status, poisoned." After that, the protagonist jumped onto the shore and, holding out his weapon to her, said, now he can't free himself. He needs to complete the test and get the highest score. Zealand thought in surprise, how was that possible? A single layer of vine wall trapped a lion? Even he couldn't subdue it so easily, especially after he just strengthened it. Bastards. At that moment, the teachers were discussing how a nuclear lion can't use its skills when lured into the water. On the contrary, the abilities of flora elements are amplified in water. The teacher said, using simple elemental countermeasures and teamwork, they easily subdued a monster above their level, and his reactions and leadership qualities are clear to see. It seems there's no doubt who will take first place in this simulation. The professor next to him said that only the final blow remained. He just needed to finish this lion. When the full recording is sent to the guild for verification, he will likely receive the highest score in history. The next second, the screen went black. Everyone was surprised. The live broadcast had disconnected. What? Why now? Meanwhile, Zillin, knocking the camera to the ground, thought that without video evidence, they couldn't even hope to get a perfect score. Meanwhile, MC turned to Chi-Yin and said that it was all thanks to her ability. A system window appeared in front of the defeated monster, stating, successfully killed a 2-headed maned lion, level 1, D-class, 100 experience points earned. She was simply following his instructions, to which he replied, that's not true. The point is that she had trained her elemental resistance sufficiently, able to use a single skill with a wide range of variations to catch a lion. She was surprised. Elemental resistance? Then Zillin approached them and said, okay, they've defeated the boss. They should save the pleasantries for now. He was fed up with this. He turned and walked in the opposite direction. The protagonist, watching him go, said, he knew perfectly well what the sudden enhancement of a D-class monster would mean for students entering the labyrinth for the first time, didn't he? He turned slightly and replied, he already said he was originally planning to enhance the girl who told her to dodge. The protagonist said, then his skills must be absolutely terrible. He's an archer, isn't he? Is that all his aim can do? Chi-Yin clenched her fist and said, no wonder he wasn't accepted into the school's elite squad. Zillin shouted in irritation, what are they even talking about? The MC stood in front of him, and then Zillin put away his bow and turned around, saying, there's a long way to go. He'll see. Chi-Yin looked around indignantly and said, this senior's personality is really annoying. She looked at the protagonist and asked, what is he doing? The protagonist was holding the camera by the loose wire at that moment and thought, this is his doing, right? He wants to prevent them from getting a high score. Now that no one can see what's going on here, if he leaves, he'll need a pass to come back. And the other groups are quite far from this labyrinth, which gives him plenty of time. He smiled and said that he did him a favor. Now he has a chance to carry out his plan. Chi-Yin asked in surprise, what is he talking about? What plans? He walked up to the seal and asked, representative, can she keep what's going to happen a secret? Although, even if she told someone, no one would believe it. Chi-Yin asked, a secret? They won't believe it? What was he even planning to do? He reached into his pocket and remembered telling Chunsheng that he had to give him something in exchange, the seal removal stone that his uncle had. In the present, he took out the stone and, placing it on a raised platform, said that he was going to take the jade spirit and completely remove the seal. Chi-Yin screamed, no, he can't. This is a D-class labyrinth. If he removes the seal, all those high-level beasts will break out. The next second, energy from the seal poured into the stone. The protagonist told her not to worry. Their power was still suppressed by the seal. She screamed, anyway, the two of us can face so many D-class monsters. He said, no two of us. She screamed indignantly, him. How can he? She pointed a finger at him, and he declared, only him.